You wrote this book 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You were right about a lot.
Yeah.
Things that happened in the church
Yeah.
in America.
Yeah.
Again, just to be clear, this was a warning to the American church.
Yeah.
What did you not foresee happening?
Sure.
Is there anything you missed?
Sure. Now, people don't know this, but I'm actually very optimistic. That sounds weird given some of the tenor of my books tend to be pessimistic, but I'm actually optimistic. And so I think I wrote at the end of this book that my goal is to actually have and envision a better future for the church and the better future for the American evangelical church. And that future would be more diverse. That future will integrate different voices and different streams and different, different people, and that would create a dynamic church that could be what the future of the church looks like. So I do feel like on one level that has happened in an exciting way. We have seen increasing diversity. We have seen more people talk about multi-ethnic churches. Those numbers have gone up. The desire to see that has gone up, especially among the young people. I think what is disappointing, and maybe it dampens my optimism, is that there was some momentum towards that, but it seems to have slowed down quite a bit. And whenever there's kind of a positive movement for change, such as, hey, we've got some diversity in our church, there's usually a conservative backlash. Conservative not politically, it's just a backlash to, hey, this is not the way we do things. We need to go back to the way we used to do things. And so I expected that. I didn't realize how strong it was going to be. I didn't realize how forceful it was going to be. So over, 5 years after the book was written, I really felt there was some good momentum. Churches were talking about diversity issues more. People were talking about rejecting the homogenization of principles and talking about diverse churches. And we actually saw the uptick of multi-ethnic churches. But over the last 5 years, a lot of that has come to a screeching halt, or we kind of hit a wall on this, where we're now stopping having those conversations to say, the concern for the changes in America that we could see as a positive for the church, diversity, concern about justice, concern about the poor, that seems to have slowed down. So I guess my regret is that I didn't see how strong that response was going to be, or even how deeply embedded these evil narratives were, so that when it came time for change, many weren't willing to do it, and they in fact reverted backwards to an era where this is when we liked it, which is when there was white supremacy, when it was white-centric.
Do you think that will be different now after George Floyd and all these protests and this really being front and center now, not only by corporate America, but seeing the church saying they're going to finally deal with this?
I think we will see a furthering of the division rather than a healing of that, and we're already seeing that. The division is getting even further and further apart.
What do you mean, what division?
Well, the division between... the response to Black Lives Matter and the protests has been, let's get, more law and order, or let's have rallies where people don't have to wear masks, or let's make sure that we are, talking about individual liberties, or let's reframe this conversation as white privilege versus white blessing versus white privilege. So what I think is going to happen is that those who, again, are reverting back to their embedded narratives of white supremacy are going to be even more out of step with those who are seeing change and reformation, revival, renewal in the church. And so... And
again, just to be clear, you're talking about Christians right now.
I'm talking about Christians. So I think we're...
This division in the American church.
In the American church. So in the church right now, we are seeing a lot of young pastors in particular, and pastors of color, evangelical churches of color, or multi-ethnic churches, they are at least beginning to acknowledge we've got to address this issue around police brutality, but particularly around the devaluing of Black lives. They're going to want to make the changes that are going to be needed. They're going to want to examine this issue deeper and further. But then we are going to see what I would call the backlash, who are going to say, no, we don't want to see that happen. We want to go back to the way things were in the 1940s and the 1950s, when we were central to the narrative and when we were the ones. And that group hasn't budged at all. That's the group that says, in public, the leaders saying, oh, this is not, the only way to fix this problem is to change individuals. We don't need to change any laws. We got to change the language. That's, white privilege. White. So those are the ones who are going to be pretty much left behind on this. And the division of the church is going to be even more pronounced. And there can't be like middle ground on this. So what George Floyd and what these things are doing is it's really revealing this is even too extreme for me. I've got to join the movement that gives credence and value to Black lives. So I would say those who've been kind of replacing the mantra of Black Lives Matter with All Lives Matter, they'll probably stay in that camp and won't budge. Those who began to re-examine the language around Black Lives Matter, maybe never said All Lives Matter, but really wouldn't embrace Black Lives Matter, they will probably be the ones who will actually begin to engage more. But that line will become even more further spread out.